Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
Oh, Craig. What did we just watch?
I don't know, but I hope you have all day, because that's how long I want to talk about it.
We could talk about it forever. Oh, my word. Okay, so I don't even know. I'm just going to jump into this. Craig chose the 1978 American supernatural body horror film, The Manitou, starring of all people, Tony Curtis and Susan Strasberg. I've never seen this before. I feel like I've heard of it. I feel like it's on some lists, but it wasn't really on my radar. So, it's my first time seeing it, and I'm glad I did. Mm-hmm. What about you, Craig? Why did you choose this for this week?
I don't know. This isn't the type of movie I usually watch, but I was looking for something to watch just for myself, and I went to Shudder, and I was just scrolling through, what's new. And this popped up, and I had never heard of it before. I am almost positive I've had no idea that this movie existed. So I clicked on it, and I read the blurb, which was really short, but kind of intriguing. So I scrolled down to the viewer reviews, and I really usually like the viewer reviews on Shudder because they're brief and they don't usually spoil things. Like, people are polite and don't spoil things. But people were like, guys, watch this movie.
Just do it and thank you later.
It was wild.
I don't want to say we haven't seen a movie like this. We've seen some pretty wild stuff in the last few years of doing this, but nothing quite like this. This is really out there. I would almost liken it a little bit to Altered States. Have you seen Altered States?
I don't know.
It starts out kind of sci-fi and really intriguing, and then it goes into just wack-a-doodle campy territory, and you're like, what movie did this become? But with Altered States, it's just supposed to be a trippy movie anyway. This movie seems like it's taking itself seriously, but then it plays like a parody almost. Like, so much of it is unbelievable. I just watch the movie before we talk about it.
Yeah. Don't listen to this first. Watch it because it's so much better. I only kind of knew vaguely what it was about, and I wish that I hadn't even known that. Just trust us. Turn it off. Come back. All right. Welcome back.
Welcome back, friend.
I see what you're saying because it's just so weird, but it doesn't feel like parody, I guess, because they are taking it seriously. I don't know. Yeah. The movie is just so bizarre. Like, it's bizarre tonally. At first, I thought that I was kind of maybe watching like a 1930s farce. Tony Curtis in the beginning. And there's so much story. I took 400 pages of notes on this movie because
I gave up. I went to the Wikipedia. I went to the Wikipedia page and I realized that the plot summary of this is like 2 pages long. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to refer to that while we talk because, oh my God, the story goes all over the place.
And it's crazy, and it jumps right into it, and it just keeps going. But it's weird tonally. So the first thing that we meet this woman named Karen, who appears to be the protagonist of the movie, and she's going to the doctor because she has this new tumor on her neck that just appeared a few days ago, but it's getting big, and he checks it out, and she says just casually,
well, it kind of moves sometimes. It almost shifts as if it's as if someone were trying to turn over and get comfortable in bed.
How often does that happen?
Well, maybe 4 or 5 times a day.
Okay.
Doctor's like, all right, whatever.
They're looking at the X-rays, and they're like, looks an awful lot like a fetus. Huh. That's weird. Okay, new character. Then we move to Harry, played by Tony Curtis. And again, I guess just Tony Curtis's popularity was waning because he was getting older, so he wasn't getting as much work. That's the only reason I can think. why he was doing this movie.
He is doing his best, by the way, in this movie. I mean, he is really he is the straight man to all the nonsense that is happening around us. And he's
The straight man. Oh my gosh. If he's the straight man, seriously, he is a fake mustachioed psychic who gives tarot readings to rich old ladies.
right.
And he wears a cape
Yes.
and a fake mustache. And he
fake
dances
mustache.
for them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's silly.
I was like, what? It is silly, but I didn't understand. I'm like, what movie is this? Is it a
Right.
comedy? I'm fine with it if it's a comedy. I just didn't know it was going to be. But then it's really not.
No.
I'm going to talk about this movie like I'm criticizing it. I'm not. I loved it.
Yes.
Loved it. Loved it. I was a little concerned for the first third, maybe even almost up to half. But once it got to the seance, I was in this. This is my kind of movie. I
The
was so into it.
seance. Oh my God. What is going on here? Oh my word, this is nuts. God, he's a psychic, fake psychic. It makes no difference to the plot of the movie at all.
No, it doesn't make any difference. It's just character building, I guess. But he's a fake psychic, except I guess now his tarot readings are actually working. Mm-hmm. Well, it's because it turns out he and Karen used to date, and she calls him. It's like, I know it's been a long time, but I really need you. And he's like, okay. So they go to China and walk around the gardens for a while. But they immediately are back together.
Fall back in love, I guess, yeah.
This very night, they end up back at his house, I guess, in bathrobes. Just lounging around in bathrobes.
As you used to do in the, 1978.
I guess.
And while she's sleeping, she's uttering some phrase. It's Pana. Oh, even the phrase is stupid. Pana witchy solitude.
It sounds so
There's witchy
stupid.
in it. Oh God.
Oh, God.
Which upsets him a bit. This becomes a major point of the movie. Is that he just needs to know what this means and why she was saying it. And he investigates all over the earth.
He asks everybody he runs into on the street if they know what that means.
Pana witchy solitude. And the funny thing is half the people that he says it to turn around and go, wait a minute, what did you just say? As though it's meaningful to them, but they're too afraid to tell him why. Oh.
So it becomes the story of this couple just attending to her medical needs for a while.
Right.
But it just so happens that it is like a freaking fetus in there. And when they are going to try to cut it out, and there's we're witnessing the surgery, and when the doctor goes to cut it, she opens her eyes, chants, and the doctor is psychically forced to cut himself. Okay, folks, this is when things start getting weird. Everything that we've talked about so far, that is nothing. That is a day in the park. This is where things start getting weird.
Yes.
When the guy gives a tarot reading.
Yes, to Mrs. Hertz.
Oh my God. I don't even know what's happening.
This old lady, Mrs. Hertz, comes in, and I was like, okay, well, she's the comic relief or something, because she's this kind of silly, flustered old lady who sits down, won't even sit at the table with him, just sits in a chair in the other room while he reads the cards to her. And he's doing the reading, and I guess it's kind of bad. It has because I think obviously, with these psychics and things like that, they're always telling you things that make you feel good. And so
Right.
He's pulling up these cards and he's trying to make her feel good like he normally does. And he's really overdoing it. But it keeps coming up bad. So he's like, oh, let me just do that again. Oh, let me just do that again. And as she's watching, suddenly her face just kind of goes bug-eyed. Her mouth opens. She starts chanting stuff, gets stiff, and then stands right up. This older woman who needed help into the seat stands right up. He's like, oh, well, let me help you, whatever. She pushes past him, goes out into the hallway, and then floats.
Levitates down the hall.
Levitates down the hall while he just kind of stands there staring like, oh, this is weird, all the way to the staircase. And then I have never seen a stair fall stunt like this in my entire life. I've seen a lot of people in movies fall down the stairs. This woman takes out the entire banister on the way down.
Oh, my gosh.
Just her body rips through each one of those wooden balustrade, whatever you call them, like they were made of balsa wood.
Which they probably were.
I was like, oh my God, this is intense, right? And he's up at the top, and I'm sorry, but then we move on to the next part of the story from here.
That's the thing. Like, I'm just flabbergasted. Like, what? Like, she just levitated down the hall. Like, does that just happen in this world? Because he doesn't see, like, he seems more horrified by the fact that she fell down the stairs than the fact that she floated all the way down the hall.
And I mean, he seems almost more horrified at what she was chanting than any of that other stuff, because that's the thing that's got his attention, and that's the thing he keeps talking about afterwards. Oh, my goodness. So
back to the hospital.
Back to the hospital. He and Dr. Hughes have a conversation, and I just... Oh, man, I wish we had the time I could just play this entire conversation out, because every conversation between Dr. Hughes and Harry in the hospital is absolutely head-scratchingly hilarious.
Yes.
The writing is so bad, and it's so contrived, and there are just lines, and they're stolen from other movies, and oh my God, it's so stupid. It's so deliciously bad, and they are playing it. This is what I mean. They are both playing it with the utmost seriousness.
Her condition is, let's say, stabilized at the moment.
Stabilized? Is that all you've got to tell me is stabilized?
Mr. Erskine, she's stabilized. For now, you'll have to be satisfied with that.
What happened in the operation?
What? It wasn't successful. I was about to remove the growth when her pulse rate rose and her respiration dropped so drastically we had to discontinue.
Well, what does all that mean?
I've dealt with tumors for 20 years. I'm the best there is, top of the line. I have $1 million research facility and a couple of Cadillacs to prove it. And very honestly, Karen Tandy's got me stumped.
Stumped?
Yes. Without going into too much detail, her tumor doesn't have any of the usual characteristics of tumorous tissue. What Karen has is a fast-growing swelling made up of flesh and bone. You might almost describe it as a fetus.
On her neck?
Looking off into windows and walking over to books and turning around. In the meantime, there is this giant computer console that I just, it's upstaging them in this room. No matter what they're saying, I just can't stop thinking, why is there this insanely huge 1970s style computer console behind this guy's desk?
I don't know.
So distracting. I was born in 78. And I remember at that time computers were the size of like whole buildings, right?
You remember what computers were like when you were born?
No, I remember shortly thereafter. I also remember pulling out the Encyclopedia Britannica and reading all about computers and seeing photos of them. But nobody had anything like this in their office. It was so hilarious. I'm like, well, that's clearly going to come into play at some point. Because if it doesn't...
Oh, it does. No, it's great. It totally pays off. I mean, I don't even know like what else. Okay, so they keep talking about this thing. Like they just acknowledge, oh, well, it is a fetus. Like, and it's growing really fast. So that's always kind of in the background. And Harry, like when Karen, I guess, is well enough to listen, he repeats that chant to her, which like causes her to like scream like a lunatic. So then Harry, I have her name here. I have no idea who she is. Harry asks Amelia for help with Karen, and Amelia says that they need to do a seance where Karen lives. Who is this woman.
I know.
Is this just the woman that you go to if you need a seance? Like, I don't.
Are we talking about Amelia or the bigger woman who is in the scene?
Oh, I see. Okay, maybe I'm mixing them up. I'm talking about the older woman. Oh, that's not even her. That's Mrs. Carmen. Oh, gosh, I don't know who Amelia is either.
Amelia and her partner MacArthur have like a pirate shop, I guess. They're dressed like pirates, I guess sailors, old-timey sailors, and they have a shop that I thought initially was supposed to be like a shop of mystical occult type things, but on the inside it's just a bunch of fishing nets and paraphernalia from ships and things. And
That's hilarious. I had completely forgotten about them because really they're just like the Scooby Gang. Like they're just there to do research. like
yes, that's the perfect way to describe it.
they're
Oh
just
my goodness.
around in case you need to do research. And then they are right on top of that.
And they don't really bat. It's like, they almost know what he's talking about. He's like, I think there's something. And he makes so many leaps of logic. You know, this is one of those movies where the characters figure out exactly what is going on, which is the most bizarre thing that could be going on. With next to no clues. It's just suddenly, and then it's not like, let's call the news reporters, let's call scientists, let's call the police. It's like, no, let's just treat this as a given and talk to my other friends who are also going to treat it as a given. And we're all just going to do these silly little things to try to, I guess, exercise that. Why did they decide they needed a seance?
I don't know. Because Amelia said so.
Was it because of the chanting? Did she recognize the chanting as being?
Maybe. I don't know. They still haven't figured out. They haven't figured out what it is yet, I don't think. Mm-hmm. They do soon. And again, it's just like, oh, well, yep, that's what it is then. But so Harry, Amelia, Mac, who, whatever his name is, he's Amelia's guy, and Mrs. Carmen, this blonde older lady, do a seance.
Which, by the way, we have no idea who this woman is. She just suddenly shows up in the group and is led downstairs.
Seriously, I was hoping that you would have,
No?
I thought surely I missed something.
I don't think so.
Okay.
She's just there all of a sudden.
Maybe, he's like a psychic. Maybe he knows psychics. I don't know. But they do this seance, and I loved this scene. It was so good.
This is the best seance scene I've ever seen in a movie.
To describe it as good, I don't even, I just don't have a better word. I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best seance.
I was all in on this movie when this happened.
Oh.
So all in.
The spirit first starts talking through the old blonde lady. But then, and that's what I expected. I've seen a bunch of seances in movies. They're always pretty much the same. The table shakes and the wind blows and the glasses shatter. You've seen it a million times. And this does that, but it also goes all in, with the lighting. The neon color light, yes, and they're lit from down low, so that the shadows are going up their faces and stuff. It looks, I love it. Mm-hmm. But then, out of what looks like a big poker table, starts to come out. I hadn't noticed anything unusual about the table before, but when they do a close-up on it, and I'm sure that this is just special effects, but it's as though the surface is liquid, and this head starts to emerge out. And the head comes all the way up to its neck, and then the head talks to them.
And they all just stare at this well, good, this is what we were expecting to happen.
And then they ask what it wants, and it speaks incoherently and then goes back away.
What do you want with Karen Tandy? What are you looking for?
It just showed up to hey, it didn't
help
tell them anything.
No, nothing about this helped them.
No, but it looked awesome. I loved it.
And then the window blows open and a
And
storm
lightning
comes,
strikes and
hits
blows up the table.
breaks it in half. They go flying around the room. Oh man, it was insane.
And then here is the leap. Somebody says, that head kind of reminded me of something. And Karen gives who was it? One of them is like, it kind of reminded me of like a cigar store Indian, maybe a medicine man.
And they're like, okay, that's our
I
next
think you're
clue.
onto something.
This is truly Scooby-Doo. It really is. Oh, so then they go and they visit Dr. Snow, who is Burgess Meredith, being so Burgess Meredith.
Oh,
It
yes.
is delightful.
Oh, yes. It's just a Burgess Meredith cameo for the sake of it. Like,
Yes.
and it's great.
Dr. Hughes called you and told you that the tumor on her neck is definitely a fetus. Now, all I want from you, sir, is some kind of an explanation.
No, you're talking about my book. Now, what I wrote in my book, pardon me, was purely a... Well, it's not here. It was purely a legend. It was a legend about a medicine man who was reborn in 1851 in the upper Missouri among the Hidatsa tribe. It is a case with very little documentation, but it had to do with a young Indian girl who developed a swelling on her arm. You see?
I love Burgess Meredith.
I love him. He's sort of like the Robin Williams of his time, just very much more muted. He's just kooky, and I feel like the directors just go, and action.
Right.
And just let him do
just do your
whatever
thing.
the hell he wants to do. Because that's what this scene felt like. He's going through, and he's like this aged man, but he's an anthropologist, I suppose. And
He's the exposition, is what he is.
yes, he's exposition man. Wanders through the place and is like making comments like, oh, I really need to clean this, or oh, this is dusty, or he's saying this very matter-of-factly, like, oh yeah, this can happen, you know? Ancient Indian medicine men, their spirits will grow within people and eventually grow to full size and be born out of them. Then they wander upstairs to his attic. I guess it's his attic. It was almost like a whole second floor on the house, I think. But there's this giant cobweb across the staircase that they have to push away.
Oh, I didn't even know.
It's so comical. It's like they just walked onto the Munsters set, you know, and borrowed it for this. And he wanders and pulls out a book. And does he tell him about the Manitou at this point?
He tells... what's his name? The main guy asks him about Hannah Witchy Salad Tooth again.
Yes.
And finally, Burgess Meredith can tell him that Hannah Witchy Salad Tooth is a language of an extinct tribe, and it means my death foretells my return. Thank God we waited 45 minutes for that payoff. I don't know that I could have waited much longer.
And what did they get from that? Just that. Because then they're like, well, maybe, he says, maybe you guys should actually go talk to an Indian medicine man.
Yeah, like, and he just says stuff that is just so, he's like, oh yeah, well.
Dr. Snow, is there any way to stop this medicine man or whatever it is before it kills her?
Well, you know what you have to understand is that the magic of ancient Indian tribes was very, very powerful.
Oh, damn! It's even worse than I thought. Oh boy!
And by the way, as all this is going on, I'm still thinking like, what about Karen?
Yeah,
Where
what's
is
her
she?
name is just in a hospital bed the whole movie.
This poor girl.
Yeah, she was totally set up to be the main character, and I was down. Like, she seemed interesting. I was interested in her weird tumor baby situation, but then she's just she is
gone.
face down, naked in a bed for the whole movie.
Basically alone in a room with just maybe one nurse attending him. With this woman with this giant baby apparently growing in her back.
They keep showing like close-ups of just like her back, covered with like a hospital blanket, thin blanket, and it just keeps getting bigger. Like the lump on her back just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Oh, it's about to get so good. Oh, man. What do they do? Then they go meet John Singing Rock. an actual medicine man played by not an Native American.
Michael Ansara.
Yeah, and I read about this guy, and he actually was concerned with representation, and there was at least one time that I remember that he turned down a role because he heard that an actual Native American had been turned down for it, or something like that. It was a different time.
Well, good for him for being a little more progressive and realizing, because most other people didn't give a shit.
Well, right. And who knows? I read that bit of trivia somewhere. I was just curious. I was interested to know if he was actually a Native American man. I don't know if it's makeup or a wig or what. He looks Native American, or he doesn't look Caucasian anyway.
Yeah, it's a decent enough approximation, I suppose, to not be like total red face.
Right.
I mean, it is red face, but it doesn't look that bad.
I mean, it is. So he plays this medicine man, and he's, gosh, I don't even know. At this point, the movie is feeling to me much like Poltergeist. Did you get a Poltergeist feel to it? Especially bringing in, the Native American who's going to,
true.
help out with.
That's very true.
And then he tells him all of these things, and of course, as we're hearing them, we're learning them too. And he's like, yeah, the Gitchy Manitou is like Indian Jesus.
He literally says that.
Yeah, and there's the Manitou, and then there's the Gitchy Manitou, and then it turns out that everything is Manitou. It's
including a gun. A gun can be a Manitou.
Machines, computers, electricity, everything. I was curious, so I looked into it. The Manitou is actually an Algonquin tradition, and it kind of is what they say it is in the movie. It's like the essence of everything, things both living and not. It's in everything. So I mean, they're drawing on a real thing. This is based on a novel, by the way, and now I desperately want to read this book.
Yeah, me too.
And it's 10 sequels.
What? Are you kidding me?
It's a series of 11. I have no idea what characters it follows. I have no idea how it's connected, but yeah, it was a series of 11 books.
Wow.
Oh my God. So anyway, then once he picks up the medicine man, they go back to the hospital where they're going to try to remove the tumor with a laser. However, Karen wakes up and stands awkwardly in the corner while the laser goes crazy and starts shooting people and cutting through walls.
The laser
and causing explosions.
I love the laser scene. It's nuts. It is just absolute pandemonium.
Yeah, it's great.
The effects in this movie, when they're not like obviously like a little bad, like you can see the seams a few times, they're actually like they're all in on them,
Oh yeah.
Animated effects, the lasers going everywhere, things are exploding and stuff. It's
yeah. This is an effects heavy movie.
It's insane.
We have not even gotten started. Like
keep moving.
Like every 5 minutes I'm going to say, you guys, it only gets weirder from here. And I can say that legit until the last 5 minutes of the movie. Like, it is bananas. It is absolutely crazy.
Well, Harry and John, they're there now. And now Karen is back in the bedroom, again on the bed, face down, quiet. Like all this crazy shit can happen, and then in the next scene, everything is like back to normal, and everybody's calmly discussing what they're going to do next. And all the time, somebody says, we should call the police. Harry just looks at them and goes, are you crazy? Call the police? And gives some, I don't even know what his excuse is.
I don't either.
Anything.
None of it makes any sense.
It's just going to be these four people dealing with it, basically.
Yeah. I mean, when I say none of it makes any sense, I say that a lot about movies, and that's when things like just don't connect. Like, things do connect in this movie. There's an explanation for everything. As far-fetched and crazy as it may be, they go out of their way to explain everything.
Yes.
What doesn't make any sense is how the people react to these situations, as though like it's really not that strange. Like, man, I mean, this sucks, but it's like
But let's figure it out.
Nobody's perplexed about this. Like, well, I guess that's just the way it is. Oh, it's crazy.
It reminds me of like a 50s B movie, some black and white 50s B movie, some sci-fi thing where these crazy sci-fi things happen. And then the scientists kind of retreat to their study and pull out pipes and start casually discussing the science of it all. There's just these huge breaks and all these crazy action scenes where everything's back to normal. And they're all like, wow, that was weird. I'm even more concerned than I was before. But we can't call the police. What are we going to do now? And what they decide to do is John is going to kind of exercise or try to contain this. I mean, I guess he realizes it's going to be born.
Right.
So we got to contain it. And of course, the doctor's totally willing to go along with this. And he draws a circle. He's like, all right, first we need to draw a circle of sand around the body. He draws not even a full circle of sand around the body. The bed is pressed up against the wall.
Yeah,
and I guess the
true.
wall is as good as sand for this spirit. He makes this big deal. Nobody break the sand barrier. Nobody touch it. Nobody mess it up or anything. But yeah, it's more of a U shape that stops at the wall. And then he talks to the spirit. I think Karen starts talking and...
I'm mightier than you. Your medicine is of no consequence.
What is your name?
Your wife, Miss Cornacus, leads the White's little brother from the plains. Do not help them or die.
What's the matter? What is it?
It's Mr. Marcus. Greatest medicine man of all.
Oh, these lines are just great. Like I wrote half of the script down because every line just cracked me up. And Harry or whatever his name is concerned about Karen, and the medicine man's like, well, if I win, she lives. If I lose, she'll experience less pain than any of us. And like it just, I want to kiss on the lips whoever wrote this dialogue, because, I was dying. Todd, I was seriously...
I read it was written in 3 days.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I mean, it shows. It wasn't,
Yes.
obviously, it wasn't edited or revised.
I was seriously like, I was watching it on my computer, but they would say these lines and I would pause to laugh and write it down, like laugh out loud because I thought it was so funny, but I wanted to pause because I didn't want to miss it. And sometimes I would hit that like back 10 seconds button and listen to it again because they're just so funny. And it's not a comedy.
It's dead serious about this. Like, this is supposed to be the scariest thing.
I don't even know how to describe it, because like it's not even so bad it's good, because I don't even think it's that bad. Like,
No.
I like it. But it is silly.
It's a goofy script that everybody just went all in on.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, that's
It's
what it is.
silly.
It's super goofy.
It's Demachus, the greatest medicine man of all. And then, for some reason, Henry is out of the room for a second, and he comes back, and somebody's face gets smashed through the window. And he looks in, and the Manitou is almost out. And I am dying. Like, she is writhing on the bed. And she's naked, she's covered from the waist down by a blanket, but from the top up, naked. And her skin is like a flesh-colored condom.
There you go.
because it's not really even taut. Like it's kind of loose. It's gross, and like you see things moving around under there, and then you see its hands, and then I, honest to God, did not think that we were going to see this happen. An arm starts to come out, and I swear to God, like I am freaking out. I am like bouncing in my chair, and then it cuts away for a second, and then it cuts back, and the Manitou like flops out onto the floor. And starts pulling, like army crawling, slithering around the floor, and then it kneels and prays, and I'm there by myself, and I out loud, "Is that a little person?" And inexplicably, it's a little person in a little demon suit. Maybe it's not fully grown yet. Like, maybe that's just the size that the demon comes out and he'll get bigger later. It was just such a shock to me.
I know.
And the creature costume makeup, I love it.
It's actually pretty
It's slimy and great. I loved it.
It had that look like kind of they took all that care and like the Wishmaster to give the demon's face those kind of like high cheekbones and kind of angular features, and also like he had a couple contacts in, I suppose, like a yellow thing, and they get these close-ups on his eyes a lot, looking left and right because he can cyclically manipulate things, and there's the body of the dead orderly or whatever in the corner of the room, which then gets up and comes towards them like a zombie to try to attack. You know, the other funny thing about this is that people are dying and they just leave their bodies there. Nobody ever runs to try to help them to see if they're still alive.
No, and this is in a hospital.
Yes, it's literally in a hospital. And like there has been a corpse since this man's head went through this window. There's been a corpse in the corner of this room for like a good hour or two that nobody has touched, except at one point the doctor had said, "We should put a sheet over him." He didn't say we should check to see if he still has a pulse. And this is the guy who gets animated and comes towards them.
Yeah.
I don't remember what happens. They just kind of like...
At the last minute, somebody shoots it or something. I mean, it's
There's a
suspenseful moment with no real payoff.
Yeah.
From this point forward, this is the form of the Manitou. This little person in a suit, and I love it. And I looked it up, and the Manitou was played by two little men, and they both have worked a lot in the types of roles that you would expect, like Star Wars. One of them was a dink in Spaceballs.
Oh,
love that movie. You know, when they dink 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 dink. Yeah, one of those guys.
Yeah.
And one of them, and I don't remember which was which, but one of them was the blob operator in Weird Science, which I choose to believe means that he was the guy in the Chet Shit Monster.
Oh.
But you can look at those guys' resumes, their IMDb profiles, and they work all the time. All the time. They're still working. And I love this. Like, it was unexpected. I expected it to be huge, like some giant beast bursting out of her. No, it's just this little guy. But he's super uber powerful, and I don't know if you want to talk about things in sequence, but from this point, things just are nuts, and everything from this point, things are nuts.
Yes.
Everything that happened was just almost brought a tear to my eye.
The thing that I think is crazy is that as soon as they summon this demon, and he stands pretty patiently, I guess, by the foot of the bed for most of the rest of the movie, although a lot of time passes.
Yeah.
So much time passes that eventually they leave the room for a while and just stand down the hall and smoke some cigarettes, trying to figure out what they're going to do next, or waiting for something. There's an ancient Indian demon just birthed out of the back of this woman's back, caught in this chalk circle or whatever, and you just put another orderly there to just watch the door and yawn for a while.
Yeah.
I just kept thinking, what about poor Karen? Have
Nobody
they just
cares.
completely written her off?
She's in the circle. There's nothing they can do.
It's like nobody even mentions this. Nobody's like, I'm worried about Karen. I hope Karen's okay. She's such an afterthought.
Yeah, until the very, very end. This is also they like again. They go to extreme lengths to make sure all the puzzle pieces fit because they tell us at this point that everything has a Manitou.
Yes.
Even man-made things. And so you have to be careful because the Manitou can use Manitou to like manipulate like police guns and stuff like that. So we know that now. He skins the orderly and then
makes a lizard appear.
That's my favorite part. That's the part that I was trying to get to. Somehow the Manitou breaks the circle, like psychically, and then he chants to summon a demon, and it is a ghost lizard, and it is just like.
It's a ghost lizard.
It's
literally
just like it's just like kind of superimposed over him. Like you would have to explain. Like they put another film over this film, right? Or something like that.
It feels like in one or two shots, it looked like the Pepper's ghost illusion where they were projecting it on glass in front of them. But then there's clearly a composite shot with the doctor's hand gets bit by the ghost lizard.
Yes, and then they say, I don't know what spirit he'll summon next. I have in my notes, Manitou chance to summon demon, ghost lizard, ! This is amazing, ! Oh, it was so good. You guys, this was the middle of the day. Like, I was of sound mind. I texted Todd. I didn't tell him anything about the movie. I was like, bro, this is going to be fun. And I had been having a bad day. Like, just not a great day. One of those days where you really have to pretend even more than usual that you can tolerate people. And then I watched this in the early afternoon, and the whole rest of the day was lovely. It made me so happy, and I couldn't wait to talk about it.
Yes.
Oh, God. The ghost lizard. What else? What else happens? The floor that Karen is on turns into a tundra.
Yeah, it becomes a winter wonderland. Yes.
Yeah, that looks exactly like Kirksville High School prom 1993 winter wonderland. Like, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
It looks so bad.
Paper mache, like ice against the walls, and like big dramatic icicles from the ceiling. And,
it looks really terrible.
And they spend a lot of time in there, too.
They do. I loved it. Oh. Even the desk nurse is completely frozen. And then okay, so I have John says, I tried to stop him. I tried everything. And then
what happened down here? What caused all this ice?
It's a demon we call the Star Beast. The spirit of the North Wind. Afraid he's preparing the way for some greater demon.
What?
What are they coming from?
I don't even know what my notes mean. Oh my God. and then the frozen nurse explodes.
Oh my God, yes. The spirit causes like a snowstorm to blast through, and it breaks the windows and takes the nurse to pieces. Her head goes through a broken window. Her arm flies off. Oh, again, nobody gives a shit, by the way, about these people.
Fantastic.
And then he picks up a typewriter and throws it at the guy.
A typewriter. It's a 70s computer. It's the size of a hay bale.
Well, it's like the size of a 70s electronic typewriter is what it is.
It's hilarious.
It is big and heavy, but he chucks it at him, and then it stops everything. And that's when John patiently reminds him, the Electronic Manitou is what got him.
Wait. John the medicine man's like, I've called on every spirit. And Harry says, what about Gitchy? and John says, Harry, no one calls on Gitchy Manitou. And then Harry says, yeah, well, he's about to get a personal call from me. Collect.
and storms out of the room.
Oh,
I just love it that when he threw the typewriter at this thing, that's what stopped everything. And the explanation was, well, it's the electronic Manitou. There's a Manitou in everything. And he keeps saying, well, don't anybody bring the police. What are you, crazy? I'm thinking, bring the police. Bring the police with all their guns and let the bullet Manitous take this guy out.
No. Instead, somebody, Harry, because he's like Columbo and MacGyver all in one. He's like, how much of this? he's like, how much of this electrical equipment do you have? Can you turn it all on at once? Oh my God! I swear to God, I have it all written down. Suppose we took the Manitou of all this machinery in this hospital and turned it on all at once and direct the energy toward the mixmaster. It might just work.
But at this time, the whole room shakes up. Like, literally, the room looks like it's falling apart. This is a room, by the way, on like the top floor of this skyscraper. And the walls are moving and the floor is coming apart into pieces. And then it all just stops and the room is normal again. And that's when John says, oh, the great old one is coming. A powerful satanic demon.
The great devourer.
He's opening a portal. We better act fast.
So they get back to Karen's room. Oh, God. Like, at this point, you're like, what more could they give? Like, if it were my birthday, what else could they do?
I would have asked for, like, I don't know, like a Star Wars style laser space galaxy shootout.
And that's exactly what you would get, my friend. Oh,
just when you think somebody on production would be like, that's too silly. Somebody else was like,
nope, doing it.
F&A.
Doing it. Opening a door, Twilight Zone style, to outer space. Set up the camera.
This is literally what happens. They open the door and it is suddenly like
outer space.
Like you said, like the intro to the Twilight Zone where there's a door floating through outer space with stars and everything. And it opens. It's like they are in that door looking in on this. And it's Karen in her bed.
And they will stay there until the movie is over.
Manitou is floating around over on one side of the galaxy. Karen and her bed are over here on the other side of this galaxy. They're standing in the door, not nearly as shocked as I would be if I were in this spot.
They're not at all surprised.
It's coming, the great cosmic battle or something. So, Dr. Hughes, thankfully, now we know why he has the console in his office so that he can turn on and control all the machines in the entire building through it, which the act of turning them on apparently starts to raise the energy.
Yeah, but just before that, the great old one appears behind the Manitou, and it's just like a light show. With
an eyeball.
It's reminiscent of like the journey through Willy Wonka's tunnel.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's a light show with an occasional shocking image, right?
Exactly.
Mostly of an eye.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. But you're right. Then they turn it all on at once. He's in a hospital.
Are smoking.
How much of this electrical stuff do you have? Can you turn it all on at once? Somebody wrote that. Not just the lines, the plot point. Like, that is a plot point. I swear to God, I want to meet. Oh, man, the director was one of the writers, and you can't meet him because he died. He died before the movie even came out. Isn't that sad?
In a helicopter crash in the Philippines. It's really sad. He made some interesting things before this, so I kind of want to go back and watch now.
I know, and then I was reading something about this movie. I couldn't find a lot about it, which was kind of disappointing. I wanted all the tea. Like, I wanted all the backstory about this movie, and there just isn't much to be found, at least that I could find. But this poor guy had done a couple of other schlocky movies, and he did this movie. And yeah, he was scouting for another movie. He died in a helicopter crash. And the article that I read was like, what a bummer, because think of all the wacky movies we could have gotten. And I have never seen anything like this. We should talk about the end. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Harry says, All right, Miss Menicus. I've had enough of this. Who do you think you are? We're not going to scream anymore at each other. Miss Menakis, you listen.
Yes. That's a pretty good imitation.
And the machine's Manitous are focusing their power. Karen finally gets her moment. At first it seems like it's not going to work. Like it seems like, oh no, the machine's Manitous aren't on our side. But then the machine's Manitous start working for them, and apparently, like, Karen talked him into it, I guess, because now all the machines are focusing their Manitous through her. So she sits up in bed, naked from the waist up, boobs out, looking banging, looking like she just got a blowout. She is fresh out of the salon, looking hot. And they focus all their power through her, and she shoots a laser beam at the Manitou.
She shoots lasers out of her arms. For a while, actually. There's a lot of lasers shooting out of her
fireballs. There's all kinds of stuff going on.
Meteorites. There are meteorites coming at them. They're literally dodging meteorites, which she's shooting with her lasers. Oh, man.
And then the Great One shoots fireballs at them, but Karen hits it with her lasers, and her power goes through the big space eyeball, and it blows up.
Like the Death Star.
Yep. And then Harry and Karen embrace.
And John's explanation was, because Karen sits up right after Harry chews out the monster, and John says, "It was your love that brought her back."
Yep. Damn straight.
And that's the end. And then it's well, that was weird.
And then Harry is like putting John in a cab, and he's like, "Well, I guess we're fine. The Manitou's dead." And John's like, "His body is dead, but his spirit lives on." And then it cuts to an aerial shot of the city, and a text comes up that says, "Fact, Tokyo, Japan, 1969. A 15-year-old boy developed what doctors thought was a tumor in his chest. The larger it grew, the more uncharacteristic it appeared. Eventually, it proved to be a human fetus."
Right. Like we needed this at the end.
Credits.
Like, I needed some reassurance that this movie is based in reality. Please show me this fact on the screen.
Todd, I was shocked. I had no idea that this was based on a true story. I was just blown away.
Right.
Wow. I'm glad that they saved it for the end, because I would have been skeptical otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Mind blown.
Oh, man, alive. I tell you what, this is one of my new favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say that very often, but this movie is fantastic.
This is right up there with Blood Rage and Uninvited as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, okay, so for me it would be like, it rivals for me Death Spa. The difference is Death Spa was intentionally silly.
Right.
And I don't think that this one is. They're just different. Love them both. I don't know, there was another bad movie
The cat on the boat, The Uninvited.
The evil cat in the cat on the boat. That one too. I really like that movie too. This one is in a class all its own, because I refuse to call it a bad movie. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's original. I think the plot line is interesting, as crazy as it is, and it's not really full of holes. Like, you have to just get on board with it and just accept that, okay, that's what it is, but they did explain it.
Even though people aren't really acting logically in the face of such a thing, but
not logically.
That's movies generally.
And I don't know, even the things that like the frozen floor, it looks terrible. I didn't even care. I was so into the movie. I'm like, oh, that looks awful. Who cares? This is fun.
Right.
Like, oh my God. Especially, I swear to God, from this up until the seance, I was like, it's all right. I'm sure we'll find interesting things to talk about. Seance on, I was giddy. The movie was so fun because it was so ridiculous. It was great.
Yeah, it's not terribly reviewed. it's odd because this seems like the kind of movie people would just dump on like relentlessly and kind of in a mean way. And the reviews that I read are quite kind to it. They're all just saying the same thing we're saying. Like, this is absolutely absurd, but it's got some fun special effects and the acting is pretty good. There's a couple instances where the acting's kind of crazy, but it's the script that makes the acting look silly.
Yeah.
That's it. But we got great actors in here, and oh man, how nuts.
I loved it. I can't believe I've never heard of it. It's so strange.
Me too.
And
you know what? There's very little trivia about it.
I know. I looked. I tried harder than I usually try. I usually hit up the regular spots, IMDb, Wikipedia, do a regular Google search. I looked for stuff here, and I just couldn't find anything, and I was disappointed.
Yeah.
Because I can only imagine there are great stories. There have to be.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
Maybe someday. Who knows?
I want to see all this director's movies. I want to see Project Kill, Abby, Asylum of Satan, and 3 on a Meat Hook. All of them sound great.
Abby, I think, was a fairly blatant Exorcist ripoff, as is this one, really.
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally, yeah. If somebody's going to, it's a ripoff of The Exorcist. Yep, sure is. Sure is.
Yeah.
And I liked it. Anyway, it gave me Poltergeist vibes too, in a lot of ways, which, again, another one of my favorite movies. 2 of my favorite movies. Giving me those vibes, give it to me. I love it.
It's also one of the very few movies that have, Native American spiritual elements to it. And I know this because I think we might have discussed this when we were doing a movie or two, but I've been on the lookout for them because I was hoping we could put together a whole theme month of this kind of stuff, and there's not a lot of it out there. So yeah, it's groundbreaking in so many ways.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but oh gosh, friends of the podcast, I really, really hope that you took our advice and went and watched it before you listened to this. But if you didn't, oh man, alive,
do it.
Oh, please.
Go now.
Because if you like the kind of stuff we like, and maybe you don't, but if you do, you're going to like this movie. You're going to have a good
Shudder.
time. It's on Shudder.
And probably other places.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Craig, for choosing the movie this week. Thank you, listeners, for listening in. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. If you've seen this movie, please let us know what you thought about it. As we said, we could talk about it all day. We can continue that discussion online. You can find our Facebook page, leave us a comment there. You can find our website, leave us comments there. You can join our patrons, and we always have I want to say backdoor conversation. That sounds bad. We always have, kind of a backroom conversation going with our patrons throughout the week about the movies that we do. Just check out patreon.com/Chainsaw Podcast or Google 2 Guys and a Chainsaw Podcast to find all those things and more. We also have an Instagram and a Twitter if you're into that. Until next time, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With 2 Guys and a Chainsaw.